and talk about your stuff.
I'm just holding up out of my way. Like, why am I looking at it?
Okay. It's easy, don't worry. Welcome. You don't have any articles, if I'm correct? Do you have any
I
articles?
have
You
one
do.
revolving fund, just like Barbara Ann and Eric. It's the same revolving fund for the weight room.
Are there any changes from this year to next year?
No changes.
All right, any questions on that one item?
Here it's all underwater.
I knew it was coming.
We knew that was coming. Are there any other questions on the revolving fund article? All right, so we can go right to your budget. If you want to just talk about some of the differences in salary and wages and then differences in expenses.
Sure, well, you're on on the break. Barbara Ann passed out for me a new set of the appendix. I had sent it, but we are having trouble with the emails. There is one line item that's different. It is the salary and wages. The administrative assistant was not given the 2% increase, so that has changed, and I did put that in. It was not calculated correctly. Chris and Charlene had pointed it out. I did fix it, but it didn't get over to you in time, so I did correct it and just sent you over a whole new set. I'm sorry they didn't get to you. Other than that, I'll just go through the budget. Mine's pretty straightforward. 43% of our budget is spent on electricity. 34% is spent on gas. 1% is spent on water. Any jokes? There we go.
You got your money's worth.
Uh-huh.
Give us time.
They got your money worse this time.
Well, if we built a pool, we could do an aquatic weight room.
I should
Here we
have gone
go,
last
here
with
we
the
go.
water. I know.
There we
You
go.
are last.
7% is on other maintenance repair. 9% is spent on purchase services. 2% on office supplies, and 4% is on groundskeeping. Those numbers pretty steadfast. If you look, it's gone down the negative 5.6%. Not really. It has been transferred over. I'm sure that you've seen that go over. We've been in agreement with the facilities maintenance, met with Sean. Certainly, we've had a lot of time to work together with him. Seems to be working fine. So
I know every time I go in the community center lately, Sean is there, so I've seen him
we
working.
have been working together. There's been a partnership. I have a lot of contacts with the vendors, and so it's nice that he takes over when we get them through the door, and I can formulate some of the relationships that we've had for the last 16 years and stay with the vendors that we've already known. So it has been working well. I don't, again, everything that has changed has been contractual and or by the request of the things that we've known would happen. The water increase, again with the water, sorry, I gotta stop with that. Really, my budget has been pretty steadfast. We don't move a lot in that area, so.
Any questions on the budget? Anything you want to add, Chris? Or
I just want to, in terms of the insurance damage that we had, there is a possibility, a fairly good possibility, that there is a statute currently that has any insurance settlement above $20,000 requires a town meeting action. And if the insurance company sends us a check and then we have to reimburse people direct, and that's above $20,000, then that would have to require a town meeting action. So most likely at this point we would put it on for the special if we can do that. Sean's working with the folks at the insurance company to see if they will just pay direct, so that way we can avoid the issue of having to go to town meeting.
Can you try that
So you're
again?
aware.
There's a statute that if we get an let me try this, make sure that I heard what you just said, that there's a Mass General law that if we have more than $20,000 of an insurance settlement,
That comes to the town direct.
that comes to the town direct, we need a town meeting vote to pay the vendors to have cleaned up. I did hear that right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Lord
make this
save
stuff
us.
up, unfortunately. I try to remember it all, but.
I just mentioned to Chris, Charlie Baker is submitting new legislation to change some of the municipal laws.
Is that
And
one of
one
them?
of that is to increase it to 150. Because
Thank
right now, you can't even replace a police cruiser.
I know. I'm sorry I heard that correctly.
Dana?
Anything else? Yes, Jack?
Oh, you know,
And Ed?
I would imagine that it was written that way to make sure towns don't make sweetheart deals with the insurance company
That's right.
behind the
Possible.
taxpayers' back.
Who would do that?
Who would do that?
Does that apply for?
Use the microphone, please.
Do you know if that applies for school districts also?
I'm sure it does.
He didn't ask that question.
I do
You
think
know, in an accident like happened with the water damage at the high school last year, 150,000 isn't even enough.
But
I
did
mean-
that
I do-
go
But
direct to
that
the
went-
town or to the school system?
Went to the school system. And
I
it's
do think in that circumstance.
like
Ed,
$750,000.
I do think in that circumstance where it's a building under construction and it's part of a construction, it may not qualify as a typical insurance claim.
This was done as a
It was through Maya?
Might check that out. Mr. Hughes?
So since we're underwater on this, I'll float the idea.
Oh,
We've had enough.
should I
the
keep
hook.
score?
Is there any possibility we could do a reserve fund transfer knowing you're gonna get the insurance money and pay the vendors and then, had the insurance funds once they're received at town meeting, we redirect it to the reserve fund or something like that, just to get the vendors paid in a timely manner?
There is one other alternative. We can petition the state for emergency spending. I've done that in the past.
Yeah. I anticipate that in the special, the Finance Committee is going to ask for an article to replenish the reserve fund, because I don't think we're going to make the spring at this point, so we've had quite a few requests this year. So there'll probably be at least a mechanism for something like that to happen. But I think we're down 50,000 or something like that. We're getting low, and because the big money happens at the end, but I anticipate that, which brings us back to your budget. Phew. Anything else on your budget? All right,
Well, I was still on the insurance case. I got thrown by the,
microphone?
I got thrown by the state, by the statute I never heard of before. At any rate, but overall, other than the $5,000 deductible, are we whole? Or, I mean, will things be, in general, how is it gonna come out? How are things gonna look?
Well, they're gonna look great. We're in the
Okay.
process, and we are working diligently to make things wonderful over there. I will say that we had to cancel one lunch the very first day that it happened, and we have not canceled any other program. And we have been assisted by our neighbors. Brewster took our Meals on Wheels delivery so that we could get those out, because our kitchen was not able to take in meals. And we have been able to shift some things, so, but we will be up and running. Our equipment is being serviced and cleaned and those kind of things. The walls are being replaced, and, but we're working through it, and people have been, for the most part, the weight room is the one area that we have not made people whole, and we have been working with, trying to get into the schools to use their weight room, and asked our friends at the Chatham Community Center, and we're close to letting people use one of those facilities, just in time for us to get back into our own. But we're trying, so, but we should be back, and people shouldn't even know that anything happened, which is how it should be.
Anything else? Thank you very much. Hope it wasn't too painful for you.
Whoop, Angela's got a question.
Oh, Angelo down there.
Nice try,
Sorry,
Carol.
which way is the arrow pointing? Oh, okay, go ahead.
It's about money. It's, I look at the budget you're putting in, it's $303,000, right?
Correct.
And then I look at the fact that you generate.
No. That's what it was in 16. My budget is 286, 642.
Okay, 286.
Sorry.
And then I look at both the current fees and proposed fees, and including the revolving fund, you do $50,000 worth of, pardon me, $60,000 between the two, and part of it's in the revolving fund. And you're taking an increase, but it's not really much of an increase when you look at it. So is there anything can be done to close that gap? Because it really is a gap. I mean, you're looking at $300,000 in round numbers, And so it's a gap of $250,000. That's, the taxpayers are paying.
I agree with you. I have some great ideas.
Good.
I'd like to do some unique things that I haven't proposed, certainly, but, you know, we do live on Cape Cod. There's a lot of weddings. Maybe we could have a wedding expo in this area and charge some vendors and those kind of things and bring in some cash, and those kind of think outside the box ideas, which I'm happy to float and bring proposals forward, but I'm happy to put that kind of information down with some hard numbers of what I think we could
Oh,
bring
yeah, I'm
in.
not asking.
But yes, I think we can make some money someplace, and not on our citizens,
And
the
that's
clubs and
also-
organizations.
That's also a change that's happened in the town. I mean, when that building was put together and envisioned and the whole get-go, it was never intended that it would make money, and there weren't even any fees at all anticipated when we first opened that building. That's all come since then, and I'm sure for something like that, you can jack up the fees all you want, but you're gonna just scare away the people that get the benefit of the building. I don't anticipate at all that building recovering your $300,000 plus benefits and all that kind of stuff. I just don't see that.
That's fine, and you add the 300,000 to the couple hundred thousand in rec, that's $500,000. And instead of taking the money out of free cash in other places, we can go to town meeting and ask the residents if they'd like to come up with $500,000 each year. And if, and according to what you're saying, they would. And if they would, that's fine with me.
That's what they're doing now. I mean,
They don't know that.
I
They don't know that.
I think you're selling them short. I think they know that exactly.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Noreen?
Sort of on that note, Carolyn, when you have some of the programs you have in there, you know, let's say somebody's giving a, I don't know, a jewelry making class. If somebody pays a fee, does the entire fee go to the instructor, or does any portion go to you?
Some goes back to the town into the general fund.
Okay.
They have to pay us.
Yeah.
Other questions? Thanks for coming.
Thanks,
Went
Sean.
swimmingly.
Oh!
I'm out of here.
I can't wait to see what stuff we come up with a library for.
Holy cow, they brought the muscle.
Oh, the muscle is here. Look at that. Look at that. Come right up, gang. We're ahead of schedule. We appreciate you coming in early. Thank you very much.
Just to be clear, Ginny, we are not going to review your entire book.
You're not?
No.
Well, sorry.
Yeah, you did bring the most
Early,
paper.
I was in the process of shortening it, but now you moved
Yeah,
us
we're,
up.
we're still keeping you here for 30 minutes at least, so. Mr. Brown?
I'm going to recuse myself from this conversation due to my family relationship. But I'm going to sit here and listen to this presentation.
Oh, wonderful.
I'll be taking the microphone.
Oh, good. Okay, what we've been doing, just so you know, throughout the day, and you're the last group to come before us, and we've been at it all day, so that might reflect in our
Yeah,
questions and responses,
silly.
but it's something you'll just have to live with. We've been going over articles first, so we'd like to take your articles and review them first, and then go from there to your budget and highlighting the differences within your budget. So, articles first, I guess you
Okay,
have two.
first we have in Article 12, $12,000, I'm sorry, $29,000 for smoke, heat, and duct detectors. The fire prevention standards call for replacement of the detectors after 10 years, and our experience has been consistent with that. We have an addressable system, so you can't just ignore that it's 10 and maybe you'll do it in 11 years. The devices start to fail and they cause a trouble, and we have to pay for a service call to come replace a individual detector, and it's a lot more expensive that way, up to, you know, maybe $1,200 for a call on us, you know, it's always a holiday weekend, and they come from Providence.
night.
So to do one detector versus about $300 per device to do them all at once. So they're due again in fiscal 17, and so that's $29,000. There are 103 devices. All right, the next article is, we have $15,000 for fire sprinkler repairs, and that is a one-time project. We have a dry system, so in kind of a complicated dry system, which is good because we're very well protected. But every 3 to 5 years, the system must be flow tested. So they did that. You know, they run the water through it last October, and a number of leaks were discovered. So this article is $15,000 to fix where we observed that the couplings were leaking. About 10 years ago, we paid $17,000 to replace a number of leaks. It's something that just happens over time. Right now, it's air leaks all the time, but the danger is that it does have to be fixed. With our system, 2 devices have to trip before water fills the system. And then water only discharges in the area where the device is tripped, so that you don't get accidental damage in other locations. So that's the danger in waiting, is that if the system did trip or activate, that we would have leaks in areas where there is no fire. And if there's not money in the fiscal 17 budget, then we would look for a reserve fund transfer this spring to do it, because it's something that should be done sooner rather than later. It's just a safety thing to protect all the collection, the furnishings, the technology, and the building. So that is that article. And then I just found out that the third article is our exterior painting, which we've had, for years we've had $5,000 for maybe 10 years, and then last year we got it up to $7,500, and now it's been put in an article and cut to $5,000. With our project for the preservation of the exterior, maybe the $5,000 is okay for next year, but it should go back up after that, because it's a big building, and the idea is to paint part of it every year so that we don't end up having to come in with a big capital expenditure to paint the whole building at one time.
I think, just on that one, I think the goal is to get you out of the building business and get more of Sean into it. So I think that the money's being moved to his budget to put him in charge of it and let him decide what the best way to paint it is, whether it's a little at a time or whether it's the whole thing at once, or how to approach it. So I think that's the direction it's going in. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's...
It was moved to his budget and then from his budget into an article, so we were asked to address it.
Yeah, a couple things have happened. Certainly some of the items that were centralized maintenance have been moved into Sean's budget. On the fire sprinkler, we moved that into the Article 12, the facility
Under
maintenance
50.
that will fall under Sean. And exactly, we knew, I had a sense that the exterior painting probably would be approved, so we did reduce that number down to the 5,000, more focused on the interior. And I do agree that in the future, I mean, that should go back up to the 7,500. Just this year, it made sense because of the, in combination with the article, to adjust that a little bit.
All right, and then the other article we have is Article 41, CPC article for the preservation of the exterior. I'm not sure how much you want me to go into that. I've got 2 pages here written. This is my short version, but
do you have a thumbnail beyond that?
We have two historic portions of the building, one built in 1855 and the other in 1880, and CPC paid for a consultant that specialized in historic preservation to look at the building and determine why the paint was not adhering. And they came up with some recommendations which involve chemical stripping of the 2 historic portions. They recommend that after 100 years, and that's really what's driving the cost. It's a labor-intensive process. So anyway, we have been working with the Historic District, have had a liaison. They voted unanimous approval of the project, and then CPC has fully funded all the work on the building itself. Work on the streetscape and repairing the brick sidewalk, which is really buckled pretty badly, has been deferred for future years. So we have the CPC funding to do the work on the building itself.
Question?
I might just add, if I
Use the
could.
microphone, please.
Back in, Mary Ward, back in December, the Board of Trustees voted to submit an article regarding the preservation work, because we were unsure as to where the funding would come from, or whether it would be approved through CPC. And so we did submit an article, and as an elected board, we voted to do that. And now we have received the funding through CPC, for which we're very grateful. But as an elected board, we need to go back next week and vote to remove that request. So it's just a formality, and then I will send a memo to all of you and to Chris stating, you know, we just have, because it was voted, we need to vote to ask it, you know, to say that it could be removed.
Certainly.
I should know the answer, but is the CPC vote to fund us on that, is that subject to town meeting approval?
Yes.
I thought so. So we might not want to withdraw that article just yet. Make sure that it goes through on the floor.
So far, it's not in the annual town meeting warrant, that article. The CPC one is.
But ours
There is an article
not.
there is an article that CPC has that they sent forward. It's Article 41 in our rack-up of things that takes care of the library exterior. So there's no need for you as a group to sponsor an article and send it through separate from that. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does.
Or not.
It does. Our article was as a backup.
Yeah.
And now that it's going forward, it's the same as if we were requesting it at that point.
You would have been seeking
okay with
some
it.
other funds or something. You would have been seeking an exclusion of some type or free cash or something, right?
We'd be going into your pocketbook.
Right. Which brings me to my question for you folks, is you don't have any trust funds available or anything to contribute? I know at one point when we did the big addition, the trust was used pretty heavily to try and cover some of the cost of that. You don't have any of those kind of funds available.
I'm
to
getting too
contribute
old to
the rest.
remember those types of things, Mr. Chairman.
What's the
but
condition of the
those-
trust? How's that?
The conditions of the trust are that we are not supposed to use the trust funds for expenses that the town should be footing the bill for ordinary type of maintenance or restoration, that type of thing. So it's for, we never get to talk about books and programs. It's for books and programs.
Okay.
That's what we're supposed to use it for.
And you have no other funds available?
They're all restricted. The endowment funds are restricted for periodicals, history, wood carving books, things like
Yeah,
that.
I've had the questions asked to me, and I just wanted
Yes.
to get the answers on the
Yes.
record and from the source, rather than
Mhm.
us making out. Questions on articles? I'm sure there'll be another night when CPC is in front of us that you'll be part of that group where the Finance Committee goes through all of their articles to talk specifically about that one, but,
While I have the microphone on the 7,500 versus 5,000 question, that 5,000 on painting the library dates back 20, 25 years now, when Mr. Hughes's father was painting the library side by side, and then Jack Sullivan inherited it from him, and he ordinarily is 7,500 or more and gives us a good deal discount to get it to the 5,000. So just be aware that it could cost a lot more than that in the future to maintain that library once we've done our restoration work
Right.
this year.
but I think the town's hope is to try and get as much of that moved over to Sean as possible.
That's our hope as well.
We'd rather have the books and programs going through you instead of the paint and lights and batteries and all those
Me
things.
too.
Sprinklers. Now let's go on to your budget, if there are no more questions.
All right, I sent you a packet with response to your questions and some spreadsheets that detail what's in each line. Most of our expenses are just, you know, contractual, there's nothing unusual in there. The building maintenance did get moved over. Actually, one difference between what you are seeing in Munis, we should be keeping 4,000 in our maintenance budget, and it says we are keeping 5,500. That additional 1,500 should have been transferred over to highway. And on a similar note, as I put on in my response to you, Munis shows that $231 was taken out of our water department line. It's not a big amount, but it's just, there's no reason for it to go with central maintenance. It's a charge from the water department for a sprinkler hookup, just to hook up to the water system. It's not maintenance on that hookup, or anything else. It's just a water department charge to connect. And, you know, if it stays in highways budget, that's fine, we'll have them pay, but just is going to make it confusing in the future. There's not a real reason for it to be there. One of the changes we made was in our office and other supplies line. We've had, over the years, maybe it was 5 or 6 years ago, we divided out, our office supply line was getting so large that we divided it out with what I guess it's called other supplies not included elsewhere, and we call it library supplies. So it's the book covers and, you know, things to protect the books, media cases, things like that. But it's always been kind of difficult. We're trying to find the balance of what goes in what line, and usually we're short in one line, so we end up actually spending out of both lines. So we're really trying to align. So this year you'll see the office supply line going up, but there's a compensating reduction in the library supply line. This year through February, we have used up 95% of our office supply line. So we're trying to realign it to actually reflect the expenditures in the different categories. And finally, the last one was that our CLAM, it's 5309, professional and technical services, which includes our CLAMS membership. And that went up, our CLAMS went up almost 5%, which is the direct result of an increase in our CLAMS membership costs, decreasing state budget for libraries, and just their budget's level funded. They're just not getting the same reimbursement they got from the state. So, I don't know if you have other questions. I have,
How about the additional Monday, the 2 months are being added? Just touch on that if you could.
oh yeah, okay, sure. On our salaries, the main expense with that is salaries. Sorry, let me go to that. We have, if you remember a few years ago, there was the HEA, which most of our employees are in the Harwich Employees Association. A reclassification study was implemented. And a lot of our positions were undergraded and they went up. That means that people, even though some of the people are still here, you know, there hasn't been turnover in some, but they are still at the lower steps, so they're still going up, the step increases, which are 4.5% a year, and then there's a cost of living. So our salary increase is 8.9%. Of that, 13,000 is adding the Mondays in July and August. That's 25% of the increase. 23% of the increase comes from the 2% COLA, and 52% of it comes from increases in steps and longevity. And we have, of our 18 people that are not substitutes, our 18 permanent, HEA employees, we have 11 that are getting step increases and 6 that are getting increases in longevity. So we have only one that is not. His longevity was frozen, and actually next year it's not frozen. It'll go up too. So we're still, you'll see larger increases until our people get to step 6, and so that's where that is. And then then we calculated in the additional cost of Mondays for electric, and electric, really, gas is not, we're not using the gas in the summer. So.
Questions? Linda?
Town administrator or finance director, page 22 on the budget comparison report, 23. Educational supplies for the library shows, did Munis just miss something? Because it's got 0 for 2015, 0 for 2016 budget, and $145,000 for FY17. I'm assuming Munis just lost a beat?
Slight increase.
But
Well,
maybe
yeah.
he's gonna look it up. I know when we looked up on the cemetery administrator, she went from part-time to full-time, and Munis just didn't pick up the old, the part-time number. So it may be something similar to,
Actually, is that the addition for the state formula to match in books, so
No,
maybe you didn't
it's
have
just
it?
the,
I
it's
actually
just the
think-
budget.
No.
The budget shows 0 on educational supplies
Okay.
and books.
I think I
Ginny?
can clear that up. What we're trying to do is, we have to report to the state by different categories: books, videos, periodicals, electronic resources. And so, I'm wondering if they're all in different subcategories under that in the prior year, and it didn't
I'm
pull.
going to answer you and say no, because the expenses, the total library expense for 2015 is $135,000. FY17 is $269,000. There's a line, there's numbers missing, so
Okay.
I'm going to toss that back to see if it lost something somewhere.
Do you have line 5510 in there?
That's what she's
Sorry?
referring to.
It's called Ed Supplies,
It says
51000.
Yeah, well, there's some line items below it, 55,
Oh, library
1070. And the prior years had 60,000, 914, 63, 867, and then it's got 0 for 17. So I think it's a question of different line items.
Allocation.
Something, so it needs to pull itself up somehow? I would think that it would just pull all line items from a prior year and not just leave some out.
Well, I think that 145 needs to be allocated to these other line items.
But the other line items aren't shown in the earlier either.
Right, but the earlier,
In other
it's
words,
just a confusion that even if there were budgeted line items that aren't being used now, why, if you ask for all the information, the report would leave lines out?
we didn't go from 130 to
To
269 in 2 years in their expenses. They go up a lot, but not like that.
I think if you look
Sorry,
at the
Bill.
report on page 28, it does say library books 60,000 and 63,000. It just didn't, we didn't allocate it in the 17 request. That's all we're saying, because on the education supplies, it says 0 on those two, but underneath the detail exists.
So it's just difficult to see what we're doing here.
I'll reallocate those numbers.
Or just tell it to
Just-
list all the line items.
Is that something we need to do?
No,
No.
Okay.
no, it's internal.
Does the total add up to the same number you're
No.
remembering here now?
No,
No? See?
it's something at our end.
Requested 145.
Is the FY15 actual correct, or I'm not?
The 145 is in there.
We think the
Yeah, previous
FY15
2 years, we broke it down.
other numbers are in a different portion of the of Munis, so they're not racking up the same in 15 as they did in 17, but it's at our end. Any other questions for the library folks while they're here in front of us? Short and sweet and to the point. Thank you very much for coming. I'm sure we'll see you again.
I want to say thank you to both the Selectmen and the Finance Committee for the money to open Mondays. That's been very successful, and people really appreciate it, especially, I think the word is still getting out, truthfully, to people that were open Mondays, not to the, like, after school, it's busy, and you'll see, the numbers, the circulation counts really go up. Monday mornings are still fairly slow, which, I mean, within, some period of time, that'll be our busiest day. And it's not yet. It's been nice. It's spread out parking, parking's available and all, but, anyway, we appreciate it. I think the community will take good advantage of it.
I know in the van, they're asking if we could do a Monday trip as well as the Friday trip, because now they know it's open, they want to
Yep.
take advantage of
Yep.
that, so.
And also really appreciate the central maintenance, I agree with everything you said earlier. We've had Sean for a couple of years, and that's been great, and now you're adding to his staff, which he really needs, and, but I'm even happier that the money's coming out of our budget, so total responsibility is transferring.
Yeah.
And now, I can assist Sean instead of this, when it's in your budget, you're still responsible. And,
Yep.
my budget preparation will be a lot easier next year. Thank you.
So that concludes the formal part. Do we have more that we have to go over on your side?
Yeah, there's a couple of items, Mr. Chairman. We did try to get a hold of Robin Kelly. We were not able to, she has another obligation. She's not able to come till 4. So she just wanted to address the issue of the cemetery land, that she wants to reallocate some new land as part of the pet cemetery. I think that that can be, you know,
Separate.
obviously a separate discussion, and probably should be a separate discussion, but just that article going forward obviously is still important. And then we did try to contact Amy as well, and Amy, we've left her word that we're running early. What she wanted to, we did not include in the budget submission, that she asked for a part-time assistant director. She thought that that is warranted and needed. We did not have funds to do it. Conservation. Yeah, too many.
Which
things
Amy?
At the same time. Oh, Amy, you. So in terms of conservation, to have that, we did not fund that. She did provide the material, which was in the materials that were submitted to the both boards. And then the last one, just in terms of kind of highlighting additional hours, I realized the Board of Health had put in for an additional 15 days for a part-time health inspector to kind of cover on backfill and special events. So they did allocate in their budget an additional 15 days worth of time to cover those events. Was there anything else?
Just on the conservation one, we're supportive of it, we just don't have the money this year.
Yeah, we are supportive of the conservation, but we just lack the funds this year to expand that.
Maybe adjustments will come along the way. There's a lot of numbers that we talked about today that could potentially affect the bottom line. Maybe some of those things can happen. Linda?
Well, I think if we look at if the youth and rec revenues go up $100,000 from a budgeting perspective, you clearly can afford the 25 for Amy's assistant. Also, under the highway department, or DPW, the FY15 and FY14, there was over $100,000 in recycling revenues for each of those 2 years. FY16, it got left out, and I know you and I, Chris, went through back and forth, and you finally agreed. You still owe me those 2 donuts.
I did pay up.
No, you didn't. I never got, oh, there's my donuts. No, he bought the donuts. But I think we agreed that there should be numbers in the budget. FY16 actuals to date is 42,000. So I think we're missing, again, revenues from recycling. And if we don't want to put it at the 100,000 level, because we don't know what recycling may or may not be, but still there should be something in the budget for recycling. So between those two, I think you're going to identify the additional funds to support adding the hours or the part-time hours to conservation for additional assistance. So hopefully that'll be the first one on the docket once we get through these other 2 revenue items.
Yeah, just in terms of that, Mr. Chairman, I was kind of thinking as we were going through, and certainly we will, I thought Noreen had a lot of good comments, which is nice to see. That makes me work a little harder. But one of the things I thought that I would give some priority to, and I know with the board, we had the 150,000 for dredging. If I could come up with a certain number to not have, to start putting some of that into the budget, that was certainly in the budget message, to start to make that transition. So that will be one of the priorities that I will do. In addition, I will look for the conservation as well.
Just from my point of view, and certainly the committee hasn't talked about this, but I almost see that the dredging having some advantages being in the article, just like you talked about the middle school. It is something that can carry over from year to year. It is some of those things that are cyclical, that some years you do a big dredge in an area, and then other years you just do a little touch-up. So having some in the budget is maybe a good idea, but I don't know what that number is. But I also like the idea of having some in articles that you can turn to each year. And it seems like in the past, just about every dredging motion has had, as a component of it, returning old article such and such and old article such and such that had already been passed for dredging to go towards that. So I agree with you that that might be a priority, but we also want to, maybe we switch that around with something else.
Some kind of hybrid approach.
Yeah, just to talk about it.
Let me get past for a second.
Microphone?
Microphone, yes.
Let me be a pest for a second.
Sure.
I don't have a lot of respect for the Department of Revenue in this state, because I think they do some very strange things. But they're very, very clear about what you do with revenue that is generated from fees. Really clear. We used to not have to charge anybody anything in the community center when we had a water department that was coming up with all sorts of money because it could cover things. As soon as that got run around the DOR for a while, guess what? We don't have that anymore. I think we have to be very careful of taking revenue from departments, from one department, and putting it into another. If you need $150,000 to cover something, don't take it out of waterways and then give waterways back free cash, which ends up being their money that they're moving around. Let's do it a different way, so at least we're covered in the thing. Because otherwise, one of these days, people are going to run and make a lot of complaints about doing things like that. And I'm not saying I'm not trying to say that we shouldn't be covering the issues you are, but I think it's very dangerous to continue pulling money from various sorts and places and using it in other places when there's ways to do it in different ways. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think we're both suggesting the same thing, but we're talking about, I'm talking about it a different way than you are, I think. Ed?
Yeah, you're talking about.
Microphone. Please.
On the recommendation that Linda was giving of if we generate additional funds in the recreation department, we're not fully funding it anyway. So any additional revenue that comes out of recreation would go to making up their cost, but it would offset recreation department's dependency on levy, which could be the funds that, I mean, it's all in the same pocket, but,
That's fine.
it's, I can agree with you if we're raising funds far in excess of the cost to provide a service, then there is maybe some question, but in this example she was citing, neither cases was that true.
Hello.
Hi.
Pausing all of those questions for a moment, we do have another guest. Amy, you want to talk to us about an assistant, I believe?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Again, Amy Usowski, Conservation Administrator for the town. Sorry for the last minute.
That's okay. We're ahead of schedule, so.
I thought I'd be getting here early when. So Charlene did fill me in a little bit about the discussion that you did have, but I mean, I wanted to come, so I wanted to show you, one, how much it really does matter to me, and also, hopefully you've all got the letter that I wrote dated February 23rd. Just kind of details all the different things that maybe not everybody knows that the Conservation Department does in terms of, managing all the conservation land for the town, managing the town gardens, putting on these kind of special events throughout the year, and taking part in more committees. Probably, I think I counted 4 to 5, if not more, committees being involved with. Some of these things I was asked to do, some of these things I saw the need for it in town, and I'd like to continue providing hopefully what you think are exceptional services to the citizens and lands of the town of Harwich. And I think I'd be able to do this better, as well as do my primary job of preparing the Conservation Commission better, if I had a technical staff person. We do have wonderful administrative staff, but there are just certain things that administrative staff can't help with. And we're doing more and more hands-on field work in the past few years, so I thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
What's that? Yeah, we didn't have an arrow for this one, so, Angelo?
I really don't have a question. I'd make a comment. I think the work that Amy and the Conservation Department has been doing is terrific. I think if we had some funds to support Amy, I'd like to see that happen. But I don't know where the funds are.
Thank you.
instead of dredging?
No.
Just
Just like to say I agree with Angelo on that one.
I'd like to say that, well, I think I do know where the funds are going to come from because I outlined them about 5 minutes ago. But I think that in watching the Conservation Commission over the past several years as liaison, that Amy's work, and she does a lot more than she gets paid for, I think, but the projects have gone through conservation with less agenda than they did, say, 5, 6 years ago. I think the upfront work that is being done with the petitioners, and Amy pushing back, they come up with proposals that have already been reworked, redone, and meet what the Conservation Commission will accept. And I think that part of that technical work, Amy's doing above and beyond the hours that she gets paid for. So I really think that this is one area where, since I outlined where the money would come from,
She keeps
I
saying
think that, well, I just want to make sure the point doesn't get missed, that we're going to
How
fight.
could it possibly be missed?
Don't worry, I won't miss it. No one, anybody else. But I think that this is something that should be an item that we should fund.
Mr. Hughes?
We just review the dollar request and how many hours and what the technical skills are we're looking for, and whether
Sure.
someone like this is available.
Sure. It's proposed at an HEA grade 9, step 1, which is consistent with other similar assistants in the town, where it does require a little bit of education to come into. I don't have the other HEA grade 9s with me, but it's $25.99 an hour, and it would be 19 hours a week, so it would be no benefits, but it would be considered an HEA position. And the reasoning for this amount is because we're trying to attract somebody, I would say either out of college with a degree, who has 1 or 2 years experience but still trying to get their feet wet in the conservation field, but somebody who does have some background in it, or a recent retiree who maybe did this for a lot of their lives and just wants a little extra income. So it is a position that does require some education. It will take some training and time on my part to do that, but this is essentially how I started. I did 2 or 3 jobs, 10 years ago in the conservation field to make ends meet, and that's how I got the experience that I'm here today. I mean, obviously I don't want to have somebody for a year and then have to retrain somebody else, but I didn't also want to ask for a full-time extra position. I will say, I mean, you all know, only 4 years ago I started as a part-time position, and with my predecessor did 4 days a week and then 1 day in health, and this position's just grown since then. So hopefully that answers it. Not somebody straight out of college. I don't want somebody extremely green, but somebody who has some basic field knowledge.
Okay. So the danger here is I'm not in favor of the position. I think the work is definitely there and needs to be done. There is a danger that you bring someone in, obviously there's a full-time job available somewhere else, they're gonna most likely jump on it. I mean, could be you find a retiree and that's all they wanna do is work 19 hours a week. Can we have some assurance that this isn't gonna grow into a full-time job in the next couple of years? And the reason I ask this is you heard the fire chief this morning talk about, he wanted another position this year, actually 2 positions for next year. And, you have to start weighing, the importance of these things relative to one another as we go forward. So,
Absolutely.
I'd just like some assurance that,
Yeah.
for 19 hours for the next 5 years is gonna be just fine.
I can't definitely say that, but I don't foresee that. I mean, when I look at my time management and I look and see how many extra hours that I probably could or do in a week, I think it meets this part-time person. Plus, keep in mind, we also use AmeriCorps an awful lot. We have an AmeriCorps person a couple times a week as well. They're not a staff person, but they help with some of the field management. I don't foresee this going to a full-time person, but that also depends on what direction the town, goes in terms of what direction this position goes. More and more I'm finding that I'm asking to do things that maybe somebody who would have a technical title of a conservation planner is doing, and I don't want a planning position. I like being involved in the conservation planning things, but if, things like the reef or Muddy Creek or these land management plans that we're generating, Saquatucket Development, which I'm the vice chair of that committee, projects that are conservation related, I mean, those are taking up a lot of time, and they're very interesting, and I want to be able to do them. But I mean, if we continue to have stuff like that, which is wonderful for the town, I can't say for certain, but I anticipate being able to get a lot of work done with a 19-hour-a-week person.
Jen?
I talk to people, and you're right, it seems like you're doing more and more.
Microphone.
The people I talk
Talk
to
to
in the
people on the air now.
conservation is getting, the number of projects are increasing all the time, which is amazing, so you do a good job. I think credibility speaks for itself.
Thank you.
I would, well, let me not go there. Do a great job. If we can find a position, I certainly support it.
Thank you.
Noreen? All set? Thank you for coming.
Thank you for your consideration. I really do appreciate it.
Yep. All right, anything else to come before the Finance Committee? I think we're all set. You guys over there?
Yep.
All right, so we're all done. We'll adjourn the Finance Committee, and you guys can continue on.
Thank you. Hopefully it won't be too long. At the bottom of our sheet, there's a recommended motion, I will just say, and this is just to include articles in the warrant. We started down this path the other night. I would just note that in my notes anyhow, Article 27, we had a question about, or holding the CPC administration costs until we got some clarification, right?
Yeah, I think we'll take that out, because
Well,
that can be
I'm just
included
trying
in
to
the
prepare the
special.
motion here, and the other one was the Article 59, the pet cemetery, since, we didn't have that presentation from Robin today, so I think we'll hold that one at the moment, if that's okay.
You want to have that in the special?
59?
I'm sorry, what?
You want to include that in the special and not in the annual?
No, just for today. I mean,
Just
we
for
could have her
today.
come in, Monday or something, at our selectmen's meeting or sometime. Yeah. So she can come up on Monday, just so we see her before we
Okay.
vote this, okay?
Would you like a motion, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, so just let me be clear. So other than that, I'm taking out 27 and 59. Then I think we're set for that motion at the bottom.
All right, Mr. Chair, I make a motion to include Articles 3 through 26, 43 through 47, 53 through 58, and 60 to 64 in the annual town meeting warrant.
Is there a second? Okay, moved and seconded to include those articles in the warrant. I won't read them. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? To vote. Thank you. Chris, you have anything else for us? Anybody else have anything? Okay, we're adjourned. Hey, I want to thank everybody. It's been a long day. We're shorter in time than we had anticipated. Thank you, Danny. You really pushed things forward this afternoon. You get the prize. But thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Okay.